this is going to be pre-recorded and put elsewhere. So if you're watching this pre-recorded, if you want to get involved with these chats live, there'll be a link in the description below, and you can jump on, ask your questions, do whatever you want. We want to do this as live as we can. So we haven't spoken the last week. Have you done anything interesting pop up in your world in the last week or so?
Wise, no. I did drop a a newsletter about like cryptocurrency in football. But that's about it. To be fair, it's
Was it?
it's Christmas now, so it's everything's kind of quieting down as well.
Yeah. Where from the crypto thing, I don't know how much research, obviously researching it, going into writing the newsletter. Was there anything that you found that surprised you that you didn't sort of already know? Is there anything that's, what's the key things from the newsletter that you think people should sort of know about?
It's probably that there is going to be a transition from the betting sector to the crypto sector. Like, and I think the crypto firms are really going to like throw money on it because they want some legitimacy, and you're going to get that with football. So it just depends on how far down the value chain they want to go. I think they're finding it difficult to get into like the Premier League and probably Championship, especially because with the ban of front of shirt sponsors, yeah, maybe they'll probably go down to like League One, League Two, where it's a bit more relaxed, or even like probably like even Sunday League, probably test it out, like sandbox it, prove the money's legitimate, it's helped the club, all that kind of stuff, proof of work, and then go to bigger clubs. But yeah, that was one of the main things that I was seeing.
Now, I think it's interesting that you brought up the movement of betting companies and what replaces it, what comes in its place. And I do agree crypto is a massive space that is going, like, there is going to be more of a move across to the blockchain. And I don't necessarily think it's just going to be cryptocurrency, but I think use of blockchain technology with AI progressing at the rate in which it is, I feel like it's almost necessary to have some sort of way of um, authenticating published pieces of work and saying like this is authentically from me, rather than somebody using my voice, using my image to create AI, like super realistic AI images, videos, whatever. You need to be able to authenticate almost everything that you put out there now, and I think
Yeah,
obviously the blockchain is the best way of doing that currently. So and there might be other solutions, but I do think we are going to see far more crypto, far more blockchain, all that sort of stuff, sort of third web, if you want to call it, all that will become more prominent in football. We wanted to discuss sort of football as an asset class, really, today, wasn't it? That was sort of like what we decided on being sort of like the theme of this. So, what are your here's an interesting question. If you had the money today, would
yeah.
you buy a football club?
How much money? Because how much money I have depends on if I would do it.
Okay, so that's a good question. Do you need enough money so that it doesn't matter that you're losing the money in the football club? Because I feel like that almost answers the question.
Yeah,
Because for me, I was thinking about this, like, if I had enough money, would I buy a football club? For me, from a financial decision, no. Like, if someone give me £100 million now and they ask me what I'm going to do with that money, I would never advise them go buy a football club. Like, that is not the financial advice I'd give anyone. Awful, awful decision financially. But from a like just a emotional decision, from a working in an industry, I think I know. Do I think I could make a success of a football club with the right resources, with the right people around me? I feel like, yeah, I mean, it obviously all comes down to recruitment, building out your board, getting the right people. Ultimately, I feel like I have enough contacts in the game, I have enough passion for the industry to make a success of it. Again, I still wouldn't do it from a financial point of view. I think it's a terrible decision. But
yeah.
we're seeing more and more people believe that it is a good decision financially. So why do you think that is currently? Why are we attracting so much American investment into the game? And what do you think is sort of like the impacts of that moving forward for English football?
I think one, the attraction of like American investors is mainly through like the media rights. And I was actually listening to a podcast, I think it was the Football Economy, and the guest that they had on, I forgot his name, was saying that people think that the media side of things and the media deals are going to slow down, but in reality, it's all media. It's always going to keep increasing. It'll just be like new players. So instead of like, let's say Sky Sports, you've got like the Zone coming in now, and then you've got different formats of football that are coming in. So I think that American investment, because of the model that they're used to the media rights for like the NBA, the NFL. They just understand how to monetize it. And when we were at the football, was it the
Before.
football transfer forum? Yeah, they were saying that like the NFL was made as a commercial entity. Like that's what they came in to do. And I think I think the Americans can see the gap in between like the heritage of football, which they can monetize, but then also the the media rights that are already there. So yeah, I think I
Yeah.
think that's I think for me personally, I think that's where the interest comes from, and that asset class comes from for them anyway. Other like, and it's all cyclical as well, which I think is funny. Before it used to be like Russian owners, just because they wanted like the ego boost of like owning a club. Then it was like the Chinese who just wanted to have a state backed system and a state backed thing to make like football a national sport, and then for them to win the World Cup. Now it's the Americans who see it as a commercial drive. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents. But what about you?
No, I agree. I think that American investors see the 2026 World Cup as a massive advertising campaign for football as a sport in America, and people are betting that it's going to be successful. We've already seen some weird stuff around. Like, did you see anything around like Ronaldo's ban? He's just got around it because I know we can't afford Ronaldo to
Yeah,
miss any games in the World Cup because of how much of a media pull he is. And it's
yeah,
just there's things like that where they're trying to make sure that there's massive success of football in well, soccer, as I'll be calling it, in America. And like I say, I feel like it's just the step. It's almost like a massive step in revenue. They can see that if we can just get X% of sports fans in America to subscribe to whatever media channel, like you say, whether it's a DAZN, whether it's a Netflix, whether it's a Apple TV, however they plan on promoting the Premier League and English football in America, they see sort of like the World Cup as the advertising campaign, and then off the back of that, getting a mass subscription to whatever media channel it is, and using those broadcasting rights to then they'll get then distributed throughout the pyramid, however it happens, especially with the independent regulator now in place to try and influence the amount of distribution of those funds and how that will happen. But yeah, I see it as they see a big step in revenue around the corner. And even if it's like getting now, get the revenue, the new international deal across the line, 2, 3 years time, even if we don't get promotion, there should be a big enough increase in revenue from the American audience in order to justify the investment. And even if it's a short 3, 4 year deal and it then starts to wane, because we don't know what the long term impact will be on fandom in America. Like, obviously, you never know until that happens. But like, is soccer going to like rival the other big sports in America long term, or is there going to be a lot of hype around a really big event and it will sustain, and then 80% of the people that got involved for the World Cup filter away, and then 20 whatever percent like stick around to actually follow a Premier League team long term, watch all the games. It'll be dead interesting because it's like for me, like London 2012 Olympics we had here. Every time the Olympics is on, I follow the Olympics. I'll watch it. I'll watch 100 meter sprint. I'll watch, all the track field, everything. But if you ask me who's the number one sprinter in the world right now, I probably couldn't tell you. Or like who's the world record holder for the 800 meter sprint, I couldn't tell you. But I am really interested in when the big event's on. It's the same with it's it's the same with all the peripheral sports, really. Like most people have a sport that they really follow.
but even what you're saying, I get it, but it would be actually good to if someone can crunch the numbers to see how like what like you said that 80% of people, then it drops to let's say 20% or 10% or 5%. In those percentage ranges, how much is needed for it to be profitable, or how much is it needed for it to be like a game changer and like move the needle, I think that would be like really interesting to like kind of work out. But then also, I think another thing that came out from the Football Transfer Forum was that outside of the NBA and the NFL and all those other sports, football or soccer to them is the only sport that is that that is played outside of the college system. So
Yeah.
they actually have a massive pool of like development, and because they're so big, you're bound to have good footballers there as long as you have like the development pathways and you can identify the talent. And then I think once the US can develop the talent and then go to tournaments and potentially like, you know, challenge for like a World Cup or the Copa America and all those kind of things, I think that's when the fandom really gets in. 'Cause people want to watch if their country's going to win or more likely to win.
Yeah, I agree. Also, I'm going to go out on a limb and say something a bit controversial here, but America in recent years have really fallen behind on producing global athletes across different sports. So what I mean is by that is like boxing was once dominated by the Americans. Like
But
boxing, like your top 10 was 9 Americans in the
yeah,
world of
true.
boxing. Now it's not, and now it's like you have like it's like you expect the UFC. There is American fighters in the UFC. I'm not saying they're not, but like they're not dominant compared to what they once were. You don't have like the biggest names come out of UFC, and obviously recent years is obviously from a global branding, and we'll come across we'll talk about IP in a minute, but like your Conor McGregor, like you're not seeing as many, like you just think, like you said, when you talk about size of population and all the rest of it, they're not dominating everywhere anymore. Like there's a lot of sports that are getting picked up by smaller nations, and it's almost like it doesn't matter where you come from. Obviously, if you've got like, exposure to the training and all the rest of it, because of how scouting networks work, you'll get picked up and get placed. And I think that's almost like the difference thing. It's like even with the NBA and stuff, which obviously massively American sports, they're getting
Challenge.
you're getting more and more European, you're getting more and more global,
Yeah, that's
basketball players enter the league. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a really good thing because it's obviously elevating the level of performance in the sport. I just think it's interesting how like I almost think we're due like a comeback of like big American sports people
it's
to come
funny.
back.
It's funny you say that because yeah, one in the NBA, like the best player now, or like the next go that they're saying is French,
Yeah.
Wemby, and then you've got a guy who plays for the Lakers, or no, you got Jokic, then you've got Atakempo, who's like Greek, Nigerian. Yeah, you're right. And then even in baseball, you've got Tani, who's like the goat now, and he's what, Chinese or so. Yeah, that's a good take actually.
So yeah, I feel like there is need. I think from global sports, I feel like America is almost missing from a lot of markets, and I feel like yeah, if we can get a lot of really good American soccer players, like if the next Ronaldo, Messi, now Haaland, we're going to miss a generation. If the next Messi versus Ronaldo debate is between two Americans, the
Yeah,
sport
that's true.
is completely different
Yeah,
because
that's
the
true.
amount of eyeballs, the amount of money that would pour into the sport if the top two biggest, athletes in the game were American, it'd be a completely different animal. But I think we're generations away from that. Yeah, I can't see that happening anytime soon. And that's why I was on about the sustain. Like I can see a future in which it happens, but I can also see a picture where there's a big event, load of hype, and then it also falls away
Yeah,
because it's so cultural. Sport is such a culture thing.
yeah, yeah.
It's not just an entertainment product. I know Americans see sport as entertainment largely. They see it as an entertainment industry. I watched an interview the other day with the Birmingham City owners, and he was talking about how it's an entertainment product, which
Yeah,
I
he's right.
understand why you view it that way. And I understand that technically you could define it as an entertainment product, but I feel like you miss so much of the cultural value of it if you solely see it as an entertainment product because the demand for eyeballs is completely different. As in, like, if Liverpool Football Club got more entertaining or less entertaining, I would watch it anyway because they're my club. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not a direct correlation to what you watch, or like,
It's
do you,
different though. Like Europe, it's heritage and culture. Everywhere around the world, it's heritage and culture. But America, it's it, it, it's entertainment, which is funny because yeah, if you went South America, those fans are so entrenched in the culture, in the club. Like generations have followed the same team. Same with even Asia. It's still like these teams are here together because they want to get good culturally, so that they can challenge on the world stage and be like, oh, we're the best at football. Whereas, yeah, it's only the US that has a different model, but that's just because it's got a different culture altogether.
Because in my opinion, American sport is more athlete led rather than club led. Like a lot of people are like we say like a LeBron James fan. And whatever
Yeah,
team he played for, I'm a fan of that team.
yeah, same. Yeah,
That
that's yeah,
does not happen over here. That would and that doesn't happen in most cultures. So like for and maybe it's different with generations below ourselves. Maybe it will be more like that. You could literally sign the full Liverpool squad for an MLS team. I'd still be a Liverpool fan. Like I wouldn't go, even though like it's got nothing to. It has got something to do with the players because obviously you use certain players that you prefer over others. But like ultimately, it's about the team, not the individuals, and that's
yeah.
and that's why I feel like there's a big difference culturally between sort of like a European global compared to American. You wanted to touch on IP. What were your thoughts on IP from a asset class point of view, from a investing into the football industry?
I just, I think from an IP perspective, I think obviously the Premier League and all those teams have got it down and they know how to use it. They know how to, even the players in the transfer, they know how to exploit it and how to monetize it. I think the real gap is in the lower divisions. So like if you were going to buy a club, you put a lot of your effort into the IP, into getting all the data from the fans and then like utilizing it in the best way. I just think there's a massive gap there. Like, and even when you think about it, in the lower leagues, they don't have the same media rights, but you can create your own media rights if you can control the IP. So, like, let's use my one of my like local teams, like Bournemouth. Like, they don't have, from what I know, any media partners. But if they were like savvy enough, they could start streaming their own games on YouTube,
Yeah.
and then from there having like a global fan base that then puts money into the club so that they can generate more money for transfers and stadium upgrades to then potentially push to get out of the league they're in into the championship and then into the Premier League. So I just think it's solely like undervalued, and I just don't know why. Maybe it's because like the people in the clubs aren't thinking that way, or it may be more complicated than just the idea I'm having. But I think it's like it's so underrated.
Do you think so? Not just from like a IP of the traditional media rights in terms of watching the games. Like, do you also see the IP as sort of like the strengths of the brands of the football clubs? So, talking about that, then one of the interesting things that like I don't see football clubs like do as much is like a lot of sports organizations want to associate their brand to winning. I know that sounds like a really obvious thing.
Yeah,
Like when it comes to sports, competitive people want to win, but obviously you only have you know. To, okay, let's talk EFL and Premier League. You got four divisions, so you've only got four winners, right? So you can only so for me, it's like from a branding point of view, what should you be pairing yourself with, like other than winning? Like so, like we spoke about Sunderland the last call we had on. I'm not sure that's going to go out, but if it does, we spoke about Sunderland, and I was saying like for them, like if you associated the brand closer to hard work, resilience, these
yeah,
sort of metrics, like, and that was all your branding was around these core values rather than like we won a game or whatever. It's like
yeah,
celebrating the distance, like your distance stats ran in the game, celebrating that
yeah,
big tackle. But like it didn't matter that we lost the game, but I mean, Sunderland doing well at the minute, but like you know, all of a sudden, like the story around the club and the brand of the club is like, I know that club because that's the club that is hardworking. Or you can have,
yeah,
it depends whatever story you want to tell that reflects your audience, your
yeah,
and this is where the data from your audience is really important as well. Because it's like with Real Madrid, obviously they had the whole Galacticos play, and that was
yeah.
to do with it wasn't just obviously we win, but it was also almost like
We have all the
luxury,
stuff.
stardom, and celebrity, and these were like that. There was almost like the values of the club was around like the idea of celebrity football, almost if you like.
still carries over now. Like,
Yeah.
even though they make
Sorry, we might have to ignore that.
that's cool.
I'm going to mute myself for 1 second. This is life. It's me being a chase for money. That is. You get 3 days into the month, everyone's wanting their payments. Yeah, bad debt to me. Don't work with me. Yeah. So we were at
Oh yeah, Real Madrid. Yeah, they still have that kind of model, even though they still get players or they're starting to get players from a younger age, they're like now getting the best players that are like 16, 17, 18 that they know has the potential to be a Galacticos kind of thing. So they're still using that. But yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I think there's even a team in like the lower leagues called like Forest Green, and like their branding is like being eco-friendly. So that's a really smart play just for like Gen Z who are more like environmentally aware, and they they're more attached to like causes and those kind of things. And if you're a football fan, that might be like you might have a big Premier League team, but then you'd be like, oh, you know what? One of the lower league teams that I support aligns with like my core values of like being environmentally friendly, being carbon neutral, and that's an easy win. And then it also is an easy win for alternative investors as well, because then you can probably get like a hedge fund or whoever wants to invest in a club that has the same values. And they might be looking like, oh, who can I invest in? What kind of club can I invest in? And you found out, oh, actually, there's an environmentally friendly one. They make sure that their kits are washed at 30 degrees all the time, blah blah, all that, all that kind of jazz. It's an easy win. But that's what clubs were kind of based on before. So like I'm an Arsenal fan. So the Gunners, we used to be gun manufacturers. So they should just carry on with that. But the branding again in the lower leagues, which is where I think most of the investment's gonna be going anyway, is there to be taken advantage of. And even like merchandising, apart from t-shirts, lower leagues can make like hoodies, caps, like jackets, and use them for like significant events. Like you're going for promotion, like at the start of the year, say we're going for promotion. This is the apparel that we're going to be using. This is the apart from your obviously your shirt. These are the big um these are the big woolly coats that we're going to wear to every game to show them that we're an army and that we're going to get promoted. Just stuff like that. It's underrated.
No, yeah, I agree that when it comes to merchandise or any sort of branded product, it's all around the demand and also an understanding the fans and what they care about, and also you can get on the back of like other culturally relevant things at the time. And I feel like like for me, branding is pairing. That's essential. So like, what do you associate? Like when Nike wanted to be associated with basketball, like they partnered with Jordan because they were known as a running brand before, partnered with
Yeah,
Michael Jordan. And it wasn't just because it was that one-off event. It was like Michael Jordan wore Nike or Nikes, if the Americans are telling me off, for his entire career. So it was like that constant pairing between Nike and Michael Jordan, like cementing people's brains as this like Nike is also a basketball brand now. And then it's the same as like for any like I just that's what I think branding is basically an associate. Like, what do you think when you see that brand? Like, what do you associate it with? So then all you have to do is partner your brand with things that have the same values as you, but ideally has higher audience as well or higher
yeah,
visibility, because it's just like so like for the Forest Green example, because the end is ecotricity, so it sort of happened the other way around. Like a really environmentally focused business bought the football club and also took the football club that way. But essentially, I don't have a brilliant example of this. Let's say there was a Google or like Greta Thunberg, terrible example, but it's a name that comes to my head. Like essentially, you could have tried to associate Greta Thunberg to Forest Green Rovers in some way in order to
yeah,
take advantage of the same values but bigger audience. And you then her audience may have the same values as your football club, and therefore they might associate themselves. And then obviously Greta Thunberg not necessarily is a bit of a
wild card. Let's say that.
yeah, let's put it that way. And also not necessarily known for sports fans being her followers, sort of thing. So like there are good and bad pairings, and that's where you have to sort of like figure out where your pairings are and who and what companies do want to pay your brand too. And I think that's where people underestimate front of shirt sponsors and everything. Like, just go, like, football clubs are tempted to always just go for the big, like, whoever offers the most money.
Yeah,
You could very easily alienate your fan base if you got it wrong. And people let it off so much, but if it was like something that was completely against what your fans believe, like, for example, if Forest Green Rovers were offered, like, I don't know, a abattoirs to be on the front of the shirt, because they're all vegans, like having like we slaughter cows to create steaks on the front of the shirt isn't gonna play out well. So yeah, no, I do think that that's a really interesting point as well. We've sort of gone away from football as an asset class now, not massively, but let's try and get back on track a little bit. What else? Let's have a look. We're looking about. Okay, you also talked about low direct correlation to public markets. Talking
yeah.
about the difference between the value of sporting assets or football in particular here to the general markets. What are your thoughts on this?
So
I in general.
you think of the public markets, you think of like the FTSE, you think of stocks and shares, you think of the S&P 500, and like that's where a lot of money goes in. I think for big institutions, that money is not drying up, but you have to maybe go somewhere a bit riskier to get big gains. And now because football isn't the traditional asset, you now start seeing private credit going into there, which is backed by media rights. You don't even have to fully own a team anymore to be able to get that investment back. A lot of minority stakes are being sold, and it's just like different cash flow profiles that you can enter a club with and not necessarily have a lot of risk. And then there's also so many other ways that you can finance like football. So you can do like receivables financing, you can do SPVs, and even when we spoke last week about multi-club ownership, like all those things like SPVs are ways to purchase clubs and of ways for you to like improve your investment. Obviously they come with like their own financial crime risks and stuff, but it's like because in the UK, because football is so protected, like the collateral enforcement of it as well is also like a safe bet.
No, I agree.
So it makes sense. It makes sense to go and invest in a football club because even if they go bankrupt, you're going to be one of the first credits they have to pay back.
I did a study, for my dissertation back when I was at uni on basically the correlation between macroeconomic performance and football performance in those countries to see if there was actually any correlation between the two. And essentially, the answer was no, there isn't. And it was what I was expecting because of the fact that, when there's a recession or like a downturn in the economy, people will cut their spending in, many aspects of their life. But the football industry just continued to grow, and
Yeah.
people continue, like fans continue to turn up. Investors continue to put their money into sport. It's been on a constant, other than COVID, which sort of then came after my dissertation, so it still stood at the time because obviously even football got impacted by COVID. But like
Yeah.
rule, the macroeconomy and what's happening elsewhere in sort of the world of, we talk about the stock market and all the rest of it. Football's almost in its own little isolated bubble.
Yeah.
You feel like there is value to. For me, everyone should have a general. My stock market portfolio isn't probably diverse as it should be, only because I'm super bullish on AI. So like I have a large proportion of the stocks I invest in are, your Googles, your
Definitely, yeah.
Teslas, your Amazons, but it should probably be a bit more diversified. But I think football as an asset class, if you're looking for something that's not necessarily going to follow the general macroeconomic trends,
Yeah.
it is an
Yeah.
interesting play. And
I
I
just
think,
think the next step, sorry, I just
yeah,
think the next step will be then because it's a not traditional asset, it'll be getting retail investors in there because
yeah,
obviously it's easy to get institutional investors in, but once you can start getting a retail investor in, it's going to boom even more. And I'm not saying, and a retail investor can be someone that wants to invest £1,000 up to like £1 million. Like for me, that's what a retail investor is. If you can get that bandwagon in, yeah, it's going to explode again. Like there's still so much money that can be put into football and be
Uh,
invest and for it to be used as an asset.
yeah. And I think there's lots of different. And going off it slightly here, but I just feel it's an interesting point to drop in. it's also like when you talked about the financing point just before, it's like there's a lot of football clubs who have now, because there's ways of doing it, is offered like bonds in the football club. Like you can buy, like we'll give you X% return over the next 10 years. We can get the money up front because we want to build, we want to expand the stadium and we need £10 million. Like let's put out bonds to raise the money, offer a certain level of interest. And it's really interesting because football clubs have a way of financing which a lot of other businesses don't have access to. Like if Tesco were like, we want to build 10 more stores. Let's go to our customers and see if they'll like give us some money if we give them a fixed rate return. I mean, maybe people would because I'd trust the fact they'd get the return on the bond because Tesco's a strong enough, like you feel like Tesco's a strong enough company not to go bankrupt. But like from a demand point of view, like people, even if they didn't care about the return on their 300 quid or whatever that they've chucked towards the club, like they just want to be able to say that they hold bonds in X football club. So there's also like an intrinsic value just to the bonds themselves, even without the interest. And then from the financial play from the football club is you'll be able to offer a lower rate of interest to your fans than the bank would charge you if you borrowed it from the bank or any other financial lender. So again,
even going off that before we have to like drop off is like if you're a retail investor or just an investor in general, things that you can look out for to make sure that your investment, well, this is not investment advice, just that disclaimer, it's just from a financial crime perspective, is like looking at the ownership, looking at their history of like business. How have they done before? Like what's their source of wealth? Are there any like disclosures in like company's house of, yeah, are there any UBO disclosures that don't look right? When you're looking at these owners, are there like any adverse media? Are there any hits on any watch lists? Like those are the kind of takeaways I will be taking from my perspective. Because I feel like when I'm investing in things, I use the skills that I've got in my career to apply it to an investment. So it's always like beneficial ownership, source of wealth, and then going a bit deeper is understanding who those owners are. Like what do they bring to the club? Are they like AI? Are they in the AI industry and they're going to try and embed that into the club, or are they just like a normal mom and pop shop that just want to put their money in? And like, what is their vision to make the club grow? Like, those are the kind of things that I would be looking at from an investment perspective. But that's just like my financial crime side coming out and then going a bit deeper. Like, what about you? What do you think is like a good takeaway for someone that's watching this?
someone that's watching this and is in a position to invest funds into a football club.
Invest funds in football club, or like just they're just interested in like the investment side of football, and potentially when it does open up to like retail clients, what to look for and how to like maybe exploit it.
Okay, so from a retail perspective, for me, it's all about risk and reward. Investment's all about risk and reward, and about the amount of risk you want to take on compared to the amount of reward you return. And also understanding I feel like the point you made about understanding the ownership model is really key because let's say, so like Birmingham City Football Club right now, the objectives are really transparent and really obvious what they're trying to do. They're trying to build this big sports city inside the UK. They've just bought out, is it a volleyball team and also the cricket club and so like they're building all these Birmingham-based sports organizations, building this like, so if you buy into that long-term project and you can see that, yeah, the value of this asset, if you want to keep it as an like look at it from that point in terms, like will the asset value grow over the whatever my investment period is going to look at? And if the answer is yes, and you understand the risks, then that's what you should do. It's almost like just whenever you're investing money, it's just like understand the risks and understand as much context as you can. The one advantage I would say about football is one, there's lots of transparency because it's just there's so much information about football clubs because everyone's talking about it all the time. I mean, we're literally sat here talking about it. Like, we're not here talking about, I mean, but there are business podcasts on other industries, but there's so much media attention on football. And also not just that, it's not just the media attention, it's just the general, like, there's so much regulatory pressure on football now, especially with the independent regulator and everything else. Like, that there's so many rules in which they have to abide by in order to operate. You also have I know that Birmingham City FC, we'll keep using that as the example, isn't like a con either.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
if he's like, oh, I've got this new business that I'm running to crypto, Like, do you want to come invest? And even if the numbers all stacked up and you sort of believed what they were saying, like, it could also be a scam. And I just think because there's so much heritage to football, the other rest of it, like there's so much understanding of what it is that you're investing into. I always say like invest in stuff that you understand. None of that is investment advice, but also like
It's not.
I think it's just essentially saying like if you decide to invest in anything, invest in something that you understand. Luckily for football, it's highly regulated and there's lots of transparency, which helps with any investment. So yeah, and then like I say, the data is also there. The last thing I point out is like there's also lots of public data on this sort of stuff. So you can go away, do your own analysis, like, and understand which football club. I mean, that'd be an interesting, activity for someone to do. Like, go away, like, analyze,
Maybe we should. Maybe one of our episodes should be one of that. Should be that. So like
like a
you
live due
you can
diligence.
break it. Yeah, you break it down from a like an accounting perspective, and I can break it down from a like financial crime perspective, and then bring it together to see if it's an investment or not an investment. And again, it
That,
won't be financial advice. It's just
yeah,
us
it's
running around. Yeah,
yeah, it'd be fun. That'd be fun. Like we have X amount of pounds to invest. We look at a football club and we say, like, would we at this valuation, like we make up a valuation, would we buy the football club at that valuation based on our understanding of that football club? That'd be really interesting.
yeah.
Cool.
We've got an episode
We've got
idea.
enough. Right, cool. Right, we'll leave it there then. 4 o'clock. Like I say, so you know what? For people who are watching this back, I'll drop in the community also when the next one is because we might look at Monday,
Yeah,
same time.
yeah.
Okay, 3 o'clock London time, 3 till 4. We're going to be running these sessions with James for as long as he'll tolerate me, and we'll be just talking about all things football business. So I look forward to seeing anybody on the next one. And James, thanks again for coming along.
Cool, man. Thanks.
Cool.